Right now on Tech Radio.
Mission accomplished.
Hi, I'm Artemis. I am a computer-generated AI voice, and you're listening to Tech Radio.
Every week online and on air with RT Radio, we bring you the latest in tech from Ireland and, of course, across the world. You're welcome to episode 1083, looking at the 7 biggest stories of the week, including Ireland's first satellite returns home, loads of Samsung news, and a mixed week for Google. And we'll be talking about how AI can be used to protect children with Dr. Sunder Khowaja from DCU.
This is Tech Radio with Dusty Rhodes and Niall Kitson.
I'm Dusty. Joining me as always, our editor-in-chief who knows everything there is to know in the world of technology this week, Niall Kitson. Let's start off with Ireland's first satellite completing its mission.
Yeah, AirSat-1 launched in 2023 and now it's done and dusted. There is a wonderful term that they use to describe removing a satellite from orbit, right? They're calling it deorbiting.
Does what it says on the tin, Niall.
Does what it says on the tin. But what exactly does that mean? Does that mean it gets pushed out into space? Does that mean, it's just sort of left around? No. In this case, it's all about dragging it back into the atmosphere where it will dissipate safely. And if you've seen it, it's a very small box. It's about the size of a shoebox.
Exactly. But it did a lot when it was up in space. Tell me the results of the mission of Ireland's satellite AirSat-1.
Yeah, and there was a couple of things that were kind of ongoing. These were sort of long-term missions. So in the box itself, there were 3 what you call modules. So one of which was a gamma ray module, which they looked at gamma ray bursts and solar flares and that kind of thing. The second one they had was what they call a wave-based control module, where they actually were testing a control system for satellite pointing in space. So you'd be like, okay, there's something going on over there. What's the best kind of angle? When is the best time to sort of move? All these small little things. And the third one they called an NBO module. And they were looking at materials and their performance of thermal management coatings. So it's like, we're sending something up. How hot is it getting? What's its temperature control management like? Is this something that could be properly repurposed for use in space, or is this something we just got to draw a line under and say, thanks very much, but no use? So they were the 3 things that the satellite was looking at. They got very good return on it. There was something like 25 academic papers published, and 50 people took part in the project. So that was mostly people from the postgraduate program in physics, mechanical materials sciences, a couple of people in computer science and mathematics, and I think there was some PhD students in there as well. So, but funded in part by the Irish Research Council, and of course, the ESA looked after it, and it was under the Department of Enterprise, Tourism and Employment. So something for, the Ireland's burgeoning, space academia, space economy, all that good stuff. And deorbiting, the word for the week.
The word for the week is deorbiting. Let's get on to another story. Now, this is one that is kind of more politics and what's going on with, the USA versus Russia versus Ukraine versus and everybody. And then that big display of army power that was in China. You're talking about the story where the dictators are talking openly about immortality. What has this got to do with tech?
Well, you can't have it without technology, apparently. A very interesting off-mic conversation that was had between Xi Jinping and Vladimir Putin. And I think Modi was there as well. Oh, no, Kim Jong-un. So it was the 3 of them were there having a chat, commemorating Japan's defeat in World War II, where they have, the giant military parade. And there's some interesting stuff happening with lasers this year. It looked very intimidating. But anyway, they were having a chat about the subject of immortality, somehow. And President Xi was thinking of living to about 150. You know, he thought that was pretty good. President Putin said, you know, with all this sort of biotechnology that's happening at the moment, you can just be swapping your organs in and out. I mean, there's no reason why you should be limited to 150, you know? And I was reading this thinking, you know, for God's sake, don't let Trump find this out. I mean, Trump is working to all going, you know, normally, we'll call it, in the States where you only get 2 terms. You could imagine Trump going, gosh, you know, a 3rd term sounds pretty dang good, you know, especially if he happens to be in a little bit of legal bother. So he'd go, do you know what? Maybe I want a 3rd term or more, and maybe I want to be looked after. So, you know, retiring at 81, he would be when he finishes up. That's maybe I don't have to do that.
We are getting leaders and people are living longer and longer and longer. And I think one of the quotes that came from the leaders was people rarely lived until 70. That was years ago. But these days, 70 years of age, you're still a child. Except if you live in Russia, where the life expectancy is 70 years of age.
Well, depending on who you ask. I mean, I was reading a report earlier this week that put it as low as 67.
Oh, how bad. What is it in Ireland?
We're awesome.
Well, I know we're awesome, Niall. You don't have to say that. How long do we live to on average in Ireland?
82. 82.
That's
not bad at all.
Not bad at all.
So, yeah. Let's keep rolling, Ireland. Let's keep doing our thing. Okay. I mean, in my family, I have a few centenarians. I don't know, Dusty, do you have any in yours?
Yes, all well into their 80s and 1 or 2 into their 90s as well. So anyway,
that's a couple eyeing the 100.
Yeah, can you? I don't know if I'd want to live to be 100. Do you think you'd want to live to be 100?
I mean, the things you'd see be quite remarkable.
No, I would like. Do you know what I would like? I would like to die, say maybe in 3 or 4 years' time. Okay, but it wouldn't be like a permanent thing. It would be like a pause, and then I would come back in 100 years' time, just to kind of check in and see how tech has evolved.
Oh, I see. You are talking about an episode of Star Trek: The Next Generation, which was in season 1, and it was 3 people from our time were put into cryogenic storage and shot into space, and they were recovered. And one of them was, you know, a lovely lady, a housewife, who was like, "Where's my family? Where are my kids? Where's my legacy?" And you know, quite having a tough time adapting to this new reality. Yeah. But one of them was a very wealthy businessman. And he was like, well, I mean, I've got to check in on my investments. You know, it's really important that I contact my banker and all this sort of thing. Not terribly interested in what had happened to the world. And the very concept of, you know, money being irrelevant was just completely did his head in. But as it turned out, he was a good negotiator. So, you know, he was able to do that. But I mean, could you imagine that, Dusty? I mean, could you imagine like throwing, say, for example, right? You're to be shot into space, you're recovered in 100 years' time, and you're told there's no such thing as podcasting anymore. What would you do?
I don't know. And even though I do say I'd like to try it, you know, okay, right. Let me avoid that question and move swiftly on to our next story. You were saying that it's a bit of a mixed week for Google this week. And it's going back to this old chestnut where, you know, everybody's saying to Google, oh, Chrome is too big. You can't own it. You've got to sell it. What's the latest?
Yeah, good week, bad week. It's a bad week if you want to buy shares in Google. They're up 9% at the time we're talking on the stock market. Yeah. So therefore, it is a bad time to buy Google. Why is it a bad time to buy Google? Well, they've just had some very good news in the US courts. Well, very good news on one hand, and then later on we'll talk about not so good news, but still kind of all right as far as they're concerned. So for the last year, Google has been dealing with a monopoly case, specifically to do with search and Android and Chrome, right? A court decided that, Google is dominant in search, right? So it is also dominant in mobile operating systems, and it also has the world's most popular browser in Chrome at the moment. You can't have all of them, especially if you're looking at, absolute dominance in search. So look, you may have to actually get rid of one of these, either Android or Chrome. So a couple of entities stepped up. Perplexity offered, I don't know if it was a serious offer, but they were talking about $34.5 billion for Chrome. Another browser, Ecosia, ECOSIA, I use it, it's fine. They stepped up and said, maybe we'll look at something kind of similar. And Search.com stepped in and said, we'll do $35 billion. That's our not quite offer yet, because we don't know if they're actually going to have to sell. Yeah. So same judge, different decision this week, decided that, you know what? Okay, you don't have to sell anything. You can keep it all. Right. However, you can't go into exclusive contracts with anyone. Right. So you set up, a browser tomorrow. You can't throw in with Google, and as part of it, Google says, OK, we're not working with Bing. We're not working with Firefox. We're not working with anyone else. OK, you are just the Google guy. Right. So you can't do that. Not that they were doing it anyway, but they can't do that. Right. And similarly, they have to share data with other parties, right? So it's if somebody else wants to set up an ad business, well, they can use Google's data to inform the development of a competitor.
Oh, that's not going to go down well.
With some people, yeah.
Yeah, but it's not going to go down well with Google. It's like kind of you have to share your data and how everything works with other people. I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
Also, another thing that comes in, they can't force any of their partners, so Mozilla, Microsoft, etc., to distribute either their search function, right? If you want to use another engine, they can't make you use Google Search, Chrome, Google Assistant, or Gemini. Any of their stuff, it can't be forced on anyone.
Okay, but the EU has been kind of doing that for long.
States, something we have over here
for a long time. Yeah.
So that's the good news, right?
Okay.
Google effectively doesn't have to do anything. They, they got to share their data, but I mean, when it comes to, okay, here's our two most profitable things that we have. Do we have to get rid of either of them? No, they don't.
Okay.
Now, the good news, and it's weird thing to call a sanction of $425 million good news, is that they only have to spend $425 million to settle a legal action that's going on in California at the moment. This was a class action case that they've been fighting, and it was to do with the gathering of data from applications, right? So a jury found that Google had indeed violated user privacy by collecting data even after they opted out of app activity tracking, right?
Okay, that's naughty.
That's very naughty indeed, right? So you explicitly told Google or clicked a button or whatever saying, no, we don't want web activity. We don't want anything that we do tracked. Thank you very much. Now, unfortunately, well, for Google, the jury said, well, actually, you were collecting their data and you were tracking them. So, ergo, you are guilty on that. However, when it came to figuring out a sanction, I mean, on the surface of it, 425 million looks absolutely huge. And I guess in company, it kind of is. The main issue in calculating it and why it wasn't more was that it was hard to quantify how much Google gained from that data and how much the class lost on account of it. It was that trouble of quantifiability
Okay.
fed into the award, which was basically like, okay, Google did this wrong. This is what the award relates to.
Yeah.
We can't prove that wrong actually affected you individually. So we can't go any further in saying, oh, and X amount for, your trouble, for personal loss or anything like that, because that couldn't be proven. So, good week, middling week for Google. Don't buy shares in them this week.
Google. Another story closer to home at the moment, and again, kind of tying in with what's happening around the world, this time with Israel, and a report about the Garda Siochana have paid substantial sums to Israeli spyware firm.
Yeah, okay. Perhaps get used to the name of this company, Cognite Technologies.
Yeah.
The Garda Siochana paid them, well, as far as we know, they paid them two amounts of €213,141 and €63,292. So combined €276,433, a not insignificant sum.
Why?
Let's put this in context. We're not meant to be buying anything from Israel at the moment because of the occupation of Gaza. And this was a decision that, it's not an ideological one. I mean, it was officially made by then Minister of Defence Micheál Martin last year. Cognite Technologies as a company, they claim to have 1,000 clients over 100 countries. Now, here's the thing. Who wants to do business with you and who doesn't want to do business with you? Well, one company that does not want to do business with Cognite Technologies is Meta. That is a huge red flag right there. If Meta doesn't want your money, you've done something or you're into something, right? They removed 100 accounts that they linked to Cognite over concerns that Cognite was actually using their platform to track journalists and politicians.
Wow. Okay.
Right?
And if Facebook are booting you off for that, yeah. Okay, go on.
You have done something wrong. So what is Cognite's main product? Well, apparently what they do is they track you. They actually do this through your mobile phone.
Nobody tracks and does surveillance like the Israelis. I mean, they are, genuinely speaking, hats off to them. They are world class. Nobody comes near them.
When it comes to security and cybersecurity, they know what they're doing. An awful lot of cybersecurity companies are based in Israel.
Yeah.
And, whatever it is about the political context or whatever there, these companies do very well. If you've got a text message, if you've had a phone call, they are able to track it and track you. So, over here, one might call that a violation of GDPR. Part of the GDPR is that you are notified when your personal data is being used in an investigation. The Gardaí are not commenting on the use of the technology for what they call security purposes. And it isn't sort of the entire Gardaí are using this. This is the Garda Intelligence Service.
Of course.
So,
yeah.
It's unfortunately it's the wing that do look at political opponents and journalists. So in a sense, they're getting exactly what they bought.
Yeah, we've got the presidential election coming up now. I know the president in Ireland doesn't hold kind of that much power, but there has been a lot of political interference in elections around the world. And why not Ireland and why not for the president? Maybe it's to do with that. Maybe it's not. I'm completely just talking off the top of my head when I say that.
And here's something else that's kind of interesting. If you, we know that the Gardaí has spent that much in two amounts. Yeah. If a particular spend goes under a certain amount, I think it's €20,000, it doesn't have to be declared. So you can say for freedom of information reasons, we don't have to say this.
Interesting. So they're up to something, basically. And that's all we know. And that's all we know.
That's all we know.
Okie dokie. On with other interesting stories this week. Now, we're looking at natural disasters. An eruption of Mount Fuji in Tokyo would be a fairly serious natural disaster. What would it look like? We might have an indication.
Do you know what? This is absolutely fascinating, because when, in years gone by, if you wanted to show the absolute devastation that would be caused by, I'm going to say, a nuclear attack.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
You had the war game, you had Threads, you had The Day After Tomorrow. We've got a film coming up in October, coming on Netflix, called A House of Dynamite, which is directed by Catherine Bigelow, who did The Hurt Locker, which looks absolutely fascinating. But thanks to generative AI, you don't have to make movies anymore. You can just make a PSA and have it look like a movie. So the Tokyo Metropolitan Government used generative AI to create a YouTube video showing what would happen if there was an eruption of Mount Fuji. And it talks about, okay, look, if there's an eruption, there's going to be a massive ash cloud that will come our way. It'll probably arrive within 1 to 2 hours. Here's what, is going to happen. And it shows things like disruption to transport, ash landing on roofs, people coughing, all that sort of thing. And it has this weird mix of, disaster movie vibe, because they're showing you everything, but it has this wonderfully calm, kind of reassuring voice taking you through things like, don't, we expect this. It sucks, but this is what's going to happen.
Years ago, when you were in school, were you ever shown a video of like a nuclear attack or what a nuclear attack would look like?
Oh, thankfully not. It would keep me up for days. I mean, I remember When the Wind Blows was
maybe
coming
that's the one I'm thinking of. So it was something like that. I remember watching in school, and it was like a nuclear attack in the UK and how it would affect Ireland or something like that. Like, I remember it scared the pants out of me. And I found it recently on YouTube. Oh my God, it was awful. it just looks so old, and the way it was put together was terrible, and I kind of got, oh my God, that really made an impression on me. And when I look at it now, it's like, oh God, how amateur 3-year-olds would do better. Listen, other things that are going on in the world today, as the Samsung Galaxy are doing a big Unpacked event, but that's going to happen after we've recorded this podcast, so it just didn't work out with our schedule. We're expecting loads of things around the S25 FE, Galaxy Buds, new TV, new tab as well. All of that is going to be on the website at techcentral.ie. We'll keep you bang up to date with that. We're also looking ahead to, is it next week, Niall? Is it the Apple?
The 9th, 9th September.
Dropping is what they're calling it.
I talked about this last week. People are still talking about it, trying to sort of think of something else to say about it. So there's a lot of micro-analysis of the version of the Apple logo being used on it. It's sort of like, it looks kind of like a heat map or something like that. Is this going to be, is that going to play into it or whatever? So I just had a look. I mean, all dropping. Yeah, fair enough. They're getting very, aren't they very clever with these things? I went through a list of Apple events just for the crack over the last few years.
And all the various titles that they've used.
Yeah, all the various titles. And I was like, which ones, kind of stuck with me, because we've seen enough of them at this stage. And I actually went all the way back to 2007. Had we started? I think this was just before we started.
I think it might have been after we started. 2006, I think we first got together.
Right. Well, this one was, see if you can guess which device this was for, or devices, which range. The first 30 years were just the beginning. Welcome to 2007.
That's the worst thing about putting a date into a title of an event, because the following year it just looks so old. What was it for anyway? I don't remember it at all.
The first 30 years? I mean, everything changes after this. Yeah. It was the iPhone. It was the iPhone release. That's where it came from. Possibly the worst kept secret in tech at the time. But I mean, Apple has been very good at these things. I mean, you remember the ad for the Olympics, Ridley Scott's ad, where they were like, this year, 1984, won't be like 1984.
Yeah. But that was
Brilliant.
one of the. They are really, really good at. They were really, really good at marketing. I think Steve Jobs was a special human being in that he just was great at marketing and selling it, and he knew how to get people's attention. I think Apple have continued doing that, and to a standard as close to Steve, but there's been no one more thing wow moment. Do you know what I mean? They're just missing a little bit of that Steve magic, and they'll never get it back again. Like, you know, so yeah, kind of. I don't remember any of them. They're all just headlines to me and stuff like that. I think Awe Dropping is nice. Good title for their event next week. Haven't a clue what it's about. I'll just wait and see. You don't
bringing a lot to the party there, Dusty.
Bringing a lot to. Well, that's because I wear a tin hat and I'm skeptical of everything. So, you know, you say Awe Dropping to me and I go, yeah, all right, okay, bring it on. I'll decide that later.
We have had fun with some of these over the years.
We have. You know, and Apple always do a good show, and quite often they will bring out good stuff. So listen, there's two things. Anyway, as I say, on the website, the Galaxy event, which is happening later today, which is Thursday morning when we're recording. So we'll have all of that for you on the website at techcentral.ie, and then Awe Dropping we will be watching next week with Apple, and we'll have a full report for you on that as well. But for now, Niall, as always, thanks for keeping us up to date and giving us your insight on the news stories of the week. Just before we get into our guest for this week, our show this week is brought to you by Dell Technologies Forum, which is back live at the RDS in Dublin on Tuesday, September 23rd. They've got special guests, including Irish rugby legend Peter O'Mahony, breakout sessions on everything from AI to the modern workplace, plus one-to-one discussions with Dell experts and more. That's the Dell Technologies Forum, an unmissable event for business leaders, and you can register now at dell.ie.
Delivering Irish tech news since 2006. This is Tech Radio.
Researchers from Dublin City University, Dawood University in Pakistan, and Munster Technological University are working on an AI content moderation tool which is designed to protect minors from grooming online. The project is called EdgeAIGuard, and it uses 3 new agentic LLMs to access and adapt to changing circumstances. Niall Kitson found out more about this when he spoke with DCU project lead Dr. Sunder Ali Khowaja, who explained it all.
Sunder, let's have a look at some of the issues that Edge AI would be dealing with at a technical level, because we're quite used to talking about, you know, the applications of agentic AI, which is fantastic. However, you're working at sort of a small scale. You're looking to keep the intervention on device, but that presents a number of technical considerations as well. So take us through the nuts and bolts, if you will.
Okay, so one thing that needs to be considered is that LLMs are very computationally heavy. So what we did was that if we want to deploy it at the edge side, we want this model to be compliant with the computational constraints of the edge device, but it should be fast enough so that sometimes it happens that the model we deploy, so the chat is going on, and sometimes it does not process the chat with enough speed. So the thing is that the responses are, or maybe the intervention is basically delayed. So the idea of this study, the main crux or the main motivation of this study was that it should be deployed at edge devices. It should be able to be used with smartphones or edge devices at homes or maybe schools or somewhere where children actually use these chatting platforms like Discord or any other very frequently. So in this case, what we did is we used the distilled version of the LLM. So There is some full versions of LLMs which require a lot of memory, which require a lot of processing power, but there are some distilled version available as well, because they provide the speed with minimum set of requirements, and that can be deployed on edge devices like NVIDIA Jetson Nano, which we used. So we can use it on Nano, we can use it on Orin. So there are multiple Jetson devices that are considered or that are categorized as edge devices. So the idea was to test on those devices so that it could be deployed in edge settings. And for that, we just need minimum, like our model is basically 287 or 297 MB. That's all. So that's the requirement that we need, and a specific like 8 GB or 16 GB RAM that is needed basically to run this model. And that is available in most of the smartphones as well.
So it's very interesting that you're looking to keep as much as possible on device. It's a privacy by design model that you're using. So when it came to selecting what LLM you wanted to use, what considerations did you have? Did you look at sort of the market and go, well, this would be a really good solution for maybe ChatGPT, or perhaps this is something that DeepSeek would be more appropriate for?
So there were a few considerations that we made. The reason to opt for DeepSeek is it's free. We do not pay for anything. So it can be used freely. Of course, the platform or the method that we proposed is LLM agnostic. So you can use any LLM you want that meets the requirement or that provides at least the baseline security. But again, we can use multiple models or we can use a single model. We are working on the multimodality aspect. Like we want to use LLMs and VLMs, but we are figuring out that how to do it on the edge devices, because VLMs are far more resource constraints. Like they need more resources to run onto the devices, like edge devices. We are figuring that out right now. We are working towards that. But the problem is that the selection of DeepSeek was motivated that it's free. It was a kind of trade-off between the computational complexity that we needed and the performance. So the DeepSeek was, in that case, was better when we were running the experiments. Of course, now the landscape has changed. As I said, the AI is, the landscape is changing every week or maybe every day, if I may say that. But at that time, the DeepSeek was something that provided open weights for their distilled version as well as their full model. And at that time, Llama was there, but we tested and DeepSeek was performing better than Llama.
So that's really interesting that you had that sort of comparison at work. Also in managing the footprint, there is, just to take an example from security, there's generally two models where, on the one hand, you would have a giant database of security threats that you're constantly testing against, or you have a more heuristic model where you're looking at things like, is something behaving like a virus? And if it's doing so, well, maybe it is a security threat, which tends to have a much lighter footprint on devices. Was that something that was working away in the back of your head during this project, that either, yes, you could have a giant LLM at work, but if something is perhaps acting in a way that is concerning, that's probably a better solution for us?
So, see, if we use cloud services, it's better for the adaptability. There is no 2 cents on it. So if we need better adaptability to the evolving threats and all that, we need to involve cloud in a certain way. But the idea was that first we try it on the edge devices, so it could be used by the users or by the parents, if I may say, because they are the main stakeholders for which this is designed, because they can keep it's not constantly scrutinizing the children, but it's kind of like a defense mechanism that something can happen, and it would be great that if something is monitoring it constantly and we get a heads up that something like this is happening to our child. So that's what the concern was about. But as I said, that if we want to have a monitoring mechanism or scanning mechanism for a longer period of time for evolving threats, then we do need to move to the federated learning setup. So in federated learning, what we have is that there are local models which are saved locally. The data is saved locally. None of the data leaves the user's device. What we do is we have the models, and similarly, there are other edge devices that have the models. All the models will be sent to the cloud server, and the cloud server will kind of aggregate all the weights. So in that case, there would be a global model in construct. And once the user is not using their device, these global models will be sent to the user and their models will be updated accordingly. But this hasn't been tested in this study. This is kind of like we want to move towards that scenario but we have to see there are some constraints to it. Now, if we assume certain things like everybody is using DeepSeek, and everybody is using the same distilled version that we have, that's fine. There will be no problem in it. But if we have heterogeneity in models, if we have heterogeneity in the data that they have been trained on, if we have heterogeneity about like labels, how they label this online grooming, or how they label cyberbullying, or how they label certain harmful content in a different way. So that would be the problem when aggregation would be conducted. So these things are in mind, these things are in consideration, and we want to work on it. But this was a start to what we want to pursue further. Like we want to have a baseline that we can consider and that can be used on the edge devices with most of the social platforms like Discord or any other one that is being used by the teenagers or children.
Let's have a look at the levels of intervention that you have envisaged here. I mean, some models that we've come across have a sort of a green, amber, red sort of system. You're looking at a slightly different model and what can be done at a point of recognizing some class of harmful interaction.
Yeah, so basically, as I said, that our system is an agentic system. So there are two agents, which is Sentinel and Context Agent. So basically, Sentinel agent is threat detector. It would constantly listen. It employs probabilistic modeling to identify potential threats within incoming communications. And then there is the context agent. So it is basically designed to analyze historical and contextual information. Now, this agent helps the network understand communication dynamics and nuances. And then again, it is crucial for refining detection as well. Now, the agent is vital for discerning subtle forms of online grooming, because it has some patterns that are stored, and it can look on the historical analysis. So basically, context agent is doing the content-based analysis job. Now, for the intervention agent, it kind of like responsible for the response generation. Like, what would be the response generation? If there is nothing, if it senses nothing, it would be seamless. The users would be chatting, or the users would be conversing with each other. But if it senses something that is a threat, or that is something that is out of the line, it would intervene, and it would generate an appropriate responses. Maybe if there is something that needs intervention from the parents, it would also it is also capable of informing the parents as well. Like if there are caregivers, if there are parents, it would message them that this is something going on and you should intervene. So
And
that's the intervention class, what we say is categorization that we did. That first, the first line of defense is the agent would intervene itself by by generating appropriate responses, and then if it's not in the hand of response generation, like it cannot be handled by that kind of it cannot be handled by the response generation, then it would let the parents know that this is going on and they should intervene in it.
And perhaps looking beyond parents as well, have you had conversations, or have you had either with law enforcement or with parental groups to see where law enforcement could potentially fit in and perhaps have an automated system or access to a system where you would be able to recognize, okay, proactively, we have a problem here, in the same way that parents would be involved?
Yeah. So we haven't tested it yet, but the way we propose this study is that it's platform agnostic. You can use it in any platform. And so the intervention agent is designed to inform someone. It could be parents. It could be used by law enforcement agencies. Of course, they need to tweak the sensitivity in a case that so basically, if the law enforcement agencies are involved, they would be looking at a holistic, it's like holistic environment. So it would not be individual based. So maybe they want to tweak the sensitivity or maybe some parameters. But again, it can work with different environments. Like if you want to implement in a school, at a school level, or it needs to be implemented for the law enforcement agencies, that can be done. It is not a platform independent. But again, the model that would be used, the model that needs to be considered, that depends on the resources that one has. And so if the law enforcement agencies are using these type of methods, they can consider maybe a bigger model, a better model, because they would have the resources. They do not need to run on edge devices. As I said, so the models can be run on edge devices. The models can go to a central server that is governed by maybe the agencies that you're talking about, and then the model can be updated with the newer threats because they have the larger footprint. So maybe they would identify, or they would come across unique threats or unique problems that they are facing, and they can all be combined within one model, and that can be updated to the edge devices of individuals.
And that was Niall Kitson chatting with Dr. Sunday Ali Khowaja, the DCU project lead on the EdgeAIGuard project.
This is Tech Radio with Dusty Rhodes and Niall Kitson.
That's it for this week. Do check out some of the other stories that we have online for you this week, including...
Yeah, a little bit more about all the Samsung announcements that we mentioned before. Speed Fibre Group completes its acquisition of BT's business unit in Ireland, and Microsoft looks beyond OpenAI to develop its own model.
You'll find those stories and more online at techcentral.ie. We're back again next Friday with a brand new show online and on RT Radio 1 Extra. In the meantime, please do share our podcast with a friend. If you're into gadgets and tech and the whole thing, just tell them to look up Tech Radio Ireland on Apple, Spotify or YouTube. Until next time, from myself, Dusty Rhodes, and from Niall Kitson, take care.
Remember, you can get the latest Irish tech news with hourly updates, daily newsletters, and more at our website, techcentral.ie. Share the knowledge and invite a friend to listen. Search Apple, Spotify, or YouTube for Tech Radio Ireland, or listen with RTE Radio 1 Extra. Tech Radio is produced by dustpod.io for techcentral.ie. From me, Artemis, live long and prosper.